Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining and welcome to the Nutshell Deep Dive webinar. My name is Sarah Brigham, and just for a quick introduction, I am the Customer Success Manager here at Nutshell. I work with some of our larger teams to get up and running in Nutshell and make sure that they're using the tool as appropriately and as effectively as possible. And I also just help answer questions for our day-to-day users and make sure that teams are getting what they need out of the tool. I do that alongside our awesome support team who's always here for all of us answering all of our questions every day. So for our walkthrough today, I'll just outline kind of where we're going to go and what we're going to talk through. We'll be in the reports tab the entire time. I'll click out into the leads a little bit and show you where we're pulling some reporting data from, just so we can kind of close the loop on how Nutshell gets to its reporting numbers. I'll run through top to bottom the reporting section. So we'll go through all of the differences between the reports up top, which are really geared towards your leads. And then we'll look at some of your, look at the reporting on the bottom there under the insights section, which is gonna really give you really good information on your business overall and just the productivity and the progress of your leads. So we'll start up at the top, as I mentioned, with the sales report. Before we dig into the nitty-gritty, I just do want to remind everyone that you have the ability to chat with Catherine here on our support team, sitting with me and ready to answer any questions that come up as we talk through the reporting. So at the top of the report section, you'll see, or I guess when you initially click on the report section, you'll see it's broken down in two separate ways. You have the reports section up top. You're looking at your sales, your losses. We have the new leads in there, the forecast, and a custom report. And then the section down below is called Insights. So that section is going to primarily be dedicated to reports that have been pre-run for you and are just quick snapshots of what's been going on in Nutshell. The activity report will address logging of activities inside Nutshell of your team. And then we'll take a deep dive into the funnel report, but that's just going to show the efficiency at which your leads are moving through your sales process. So we'll deep dive into the sales report first. And there's a couple of things to be said about this report right off the bat. So what we're looking at here are leads that have been closed and won. So if I click over to my lead section quickly, I will click into a lead that we have open. If I were to drop this down and click on one, the lead would then show up in my sales reporting. So you can see we have the circle with the star. If I click one on this lead, it would then circle with a star, be included in my sales reporting. So that's where this report is pulling lead information from. Off the bat, I think it's important that I point out your default date range for this report is going to be the last 365 days. So if you were to go into your own Nutshell right now and click on reports and click on sales, you would see the same 365-day view. Feel free to change this if you'd like. We have a couple of pre-selected date ranges here. And this is going to look primarily at your past. So you can see the last 90 days, this quarter, year, financial year, or the last month. And to reiterate there, the reason that we're looking at last or past is because these are closed won sales. You will have a forecast or a report to look at future wins, which we'll get to when we talk about the forecast report. So I'll leave it the last 365 days here, and I should have maybe admitted this off the top of the call, but I am not nor have never been a numbers person. Probably why I'm in customer success. I like talking to people and helping as opposed to sitting and crunching numbers. So personally, I find this view just tad bit overwhelming with all of the different graphs. I like to take it down to a quarterly view. So basically what I just did was clicked from the week to the quarter, but we're still going to be looking at that last 365 days. For me, this is just a little bit more manageable. I think it personally helps me see trends maybe a little bit better. It will, no matter what time range you're looking at, you'll always see this dotted line here, which is going to reflect the quota that you have entered in for your team. As a reference, you will find your quota settings in the Setup tab. So your quota settings will be in the Setup tab, and then our reporting will apply that quota. If you hover over a specific bar graph area, you'll just get a good textual breakdown of what that graph or what that bar line is showing. So here we can see we're looking at Q4 2016, so October 1st to December 31st. We had 50 closed won leads during that time period, which totaled 3.7 million. So you can see that the quota and the actual leads sold value is very close. That's reflected in the line, and you can also just see that in the numbers, below, or in the numbers in the interstitial pop-out box here. And you'll see that that will dynamically change as we scroll through. If you're a team that would like to operate more based on quantity as opposed to value, you certainly have the option to toggle back and forth between the two. So you can do an interesting comparison there. You know, we looked at our value, okay, Q1, we had in Q1 2017, we had 57 leads. You'll see that exact same information if you toggle back and forth. Initially, when you're looking at these reports, you'll see that this segment drop-down is reading segmented by none. This is where you have the opportunity to just quickly choose an attribute that you'd like to segment the report by. So from that drop-down list, I selected assignee. We have all of our team members listed across the top, and as I toggle over them, our graphs change to reflect just that individual user's sales, which is really cool. This is one of my favorite features of our new reporting. If you remove your mouse from those names, you'll see that all sales show up for all users, and instead you can hover over the bar graph and get a more detailed breakdown of that individual user. So it stacks them up against each other, shows you the quantity of won leads as well as the value. I think that's pretty cool. You can choose which way you want to view that. If we wanted to segment by source, we could do the same thing. The reason this one looks a little bit wonky, wonky is this is a great example here. We're working with some fake data, and for whatever reason, we sold 7 leads with no source for $762,000. So you can see that, you know, for your data, it will likely be much more clean, and you'll be seeing something similar here to what you saw with the segment by assignee. So we'll remove our segments from the drop-down, and we'll get kind of back to our default view here, 365 days. We have the week. We are looking at our value, and we're segmenting by none. Another cool feature of our new reporting is that you always have the option to click this compare to. So right off the bat, even from our default settings here in reporting, I can click compare to, and it's going to give me 2 options. It'll say, do you want us to compare year-over-year data, or would you like us to compare the previous 365 days? So if I wanted to go year-over-year, I could apply that, and it's going to show me, we'll go back to our quarterly view, it's going to show me, hey, 2016 versus 2017 Q1 sales. and you can move down the line. 2015, you can see, was a little bit of a rough year for us. No sales, no leads. You can do that same thing if you wanted to say maybe this quarter. Let's compare quarters year over year. So here we are comparing Q2, 2016 to 2017. And you can see that all the way over to the right of this black box, you see that green arrow, the green 1,400, we'll just say round up, say 1,500% growth. So I'd say that's pretty good growth year over year. All right, so we'll go back to our default view here. Whoops. And I think next we'll move into looking at some of the more in-depth filtering that Nutshell allows. So if you click on that filter icon that's right next to segment by none, you open what we lovingly refer to as our junk drawer. Some people call it, their salad bar pick list. Lots of names for it, but essentially it's going to be the area where you'll have all of the fields that you can filter and sort by. So you will again have a signee here. So maybe let's look at Charles's sales. We've been working with him on getting his numbers up since January. We can see the trends. He had a good month in May. He's starting to get stronger in his sales. You can look at by last contacted date. So, hey, let's look at how many leads that we've won as well as contacted within the last 30 days. So we've talked to them and we won them. You can look at those numbers. If you want, you can even layer those filters on top of each other. So now we're looking at the leads we won in the last 365 days that were contacted within this 30-day window assigned to Charles. So that may be a little bit more in-depth of filtering than you'll be doing on a daily basis, but just know you do have the opportunity to really kind of dig into each of these different fields that you can sort by. You do also have your custom fields available down if you scroll down a little bit further, and you also have the ability to look at company type, industry, or territory. So we could certainly filter by only our customers. What leads have we won that have been the company type customer? We could look at what leads we've won with the company type reseller. So you get the picture. You have a lot of capabilities here with the filtering. One thing I wanted to mention here on the bar graphs before we move on to our losses report is that across the bottom, you do have some averages that will calculate for you. So the total value of that time period, your average value per month, since we're looking at that 365-day view, we are also having it broken down monthly, so you'll see if we change that to week, your average value will change to your average value per week. You have your average time open. So this is just saying out of the leads that you've won that we're looking at in the last 365-day view here, the average time that they've been open has been 30 days. And then the last field here is your average lead value. So again, this is the report that will show you your sales that have been won. So if we're looking at our leads, we're going to see the one symbol. Those leads are going to show up here in sales. Universally in our new reporting, you will have these My Saved Reports, Share, Save As, and Save options across the top. So if I wanted to go back to that example where I saw Charles Berry's wins that were contacted within the last 30 days, and I wanted to save that report, Charles's wins last 30-day contact. And then we'll, in parentheses, we can just put 365 days so we know it's a full year view. And I'm going to click save. The title of that report will then change to your new saved report title. You can always feel free to share your reports. You can keep them private, certainly. You can share them with everyone, or you can choose individuals that you would like to share them with. Next to your save section, you do have these three little dots where you can say, hey, I'd like to download report details. I'd like to download the report chart, or I'd like to download the lead list. So if you were to click on the download report details, you would be downloading this tab right here. It would have your date of your lead, the value of the one lead, and how that compares to your quota. And you're looking at a monthly breakdown. If you were to download and export the leads list, or I'm sorry, yep, excuse me, I thought it was called something different, but your leads list, you can also adjust your columns. So I'm sure, if you've had the chance, you've gotten familiar using your columns in your company's people and leads section. You can do the same thing here in your leads or your reports view, and you can pick the columns that you want to see in your export. All right, so moving from sales into our losses report. So losses report, just as you'd imagine, is the complete opposite of what we were just looking at. These are leads that have been won and lost. So if we said, hey, this lead was lost because we didn't have enough budget, showing the status as lost, it's giving you that icon, classic icon circle with the slash through it. That's exactly what you're gonna see. Helps you kind of signify, yep, I'm in the right spot. So these are leads that did not bring in revenue. Lots of similarities here that will hopefully help you get used to the new reporting. You'll have the default date range of 365 days, default view of value, segmented by none, on a weekly view basis. So we're looking at our weeks over the last 365 days. Again, you have some of your averages down along the bottom. So we had 12.5 million in total sales lost. That was about 235,000, we'll say 236,000 on average per week. The average open time for your lost leads was 27 days, so a little bit shorter than those won leads. And then your average lead value of those lost was that $45. So the average lead value was $44,000 that was lost. So you can do a lot of the same stuff here, filter or change the view to month or quarterly. You have the option to use your pre-selected date ranges. And I didn't show this in the last report, but you can always choose to manually select your date ranges as well. We can apply that. We're looking just at July 2017. And since we have not gotten to that month yet, we don't have any losses. We'll go back to see our May losses. There we go. So now we're comparing May, June, and July. Have the same segment options in the dropdown. So we can segment again by assignee, and it will do much as we saw with the sales report. You can hover over the individual and it will break down their sales and segment those out individually. Or you can just hover over the bar graph and it will run through a little comparison of your team. We can segment by outcome as well. This is a pretty popular request or question that we get I want to see my leads that I've lost, and I want to see the specific reasons why they were lost. As you saw when we were on the lead page here in this loss section, you do have the opportunity to create lost outcome reasons. You can do that in the setup tab here underneath the outcomes. So you'll see not enough budget, timeline too narrow. If we were to click back into our reports, you'll see that same text reflected. So, the top reason that we're losing leads right now is that their timeline is too narrow, but quickly in behind that is that they don't have enough budget for the product. If you wanted to segment by outcome and then filter a signee on top of that, you also have that option. So Charles Berry, from May 1st to July 29th, lost 2 leads because there was not enough budget. Or I'm sorry, I should say in May, he lost 2 leads because not enough budget. He has 1 lead open, and the loss timeline is too narrow. So you can break it down by person and by outcome. Again, you will have your custom fields available here as a segment or filter option. And then you have those same company fields, the company type, the industry, and the territory. You have your details view and your leads view, just as you had with your sales report. New leads are going to be for leads that are currently open in the leads section. So if I were to go to my leads page and I were to click on leads that were open, we'll remove pipeline and assignee filters. These are the leads, the open leads, that will be showing up in your new leads report. Same defaults here. You guys will get, I hate to sound like a broken record, you'll get used to this, but it's 365 days. We're looking at the value and we're segmenting by none. If you want to segment by assignee, you can see how many leads they have in their pipeline. So it breaks it down again per person, hover over the top or where their name is located, and you'll see their specific numbers. You can also look at it by quantity, and maybe we can also look at it by product. How many leads do we have in here? We'll look at it, break it down quarterly. How many leads do we have in each quarter that are open with what specific product attached? So we have a product in the system called Sunraiser. 85 leads are open right now in for Q1 2017. It will change the numbers down at the bottom just as a reference. You can see when in the value, when value is selected as the segmentation, then you'll see the dollar signs and the average per. If you click that over to quantity, it's going to just go straight to your quantity as rather than keeping that dollars. You have your details and leads tabs. And again, you can export all of that. And you have your junk drawer for filtering. Your forecast report is going to be for the sales that are yet to come. So sales, the top report, sales that have happened, losses, leads that you've lost, closed and lost. New leads are the ones that are open and just working through your pipeline. And then the forecast is specifically to look at the revenue that you have projected for the future. A common question we get is, where are you pulling the date for those leads? Where am I telling you what the expected to close date is? And I always like to point out that it's at the very top of a lead. You can click on it and it will give you a little calendar experience. You can put in the date, the time, and that is what we will pull from when we're looking at forecasting out your revenue. So in this example, if we were to say, I think I'm going to close this lead on July 12th, then we would be able to see in this week, since we are looking at a weekly breakdown, we'll have that lead added. Since we said we expect to close it on July 12th, that revenue will be taken into consideration for this week's forecast. So again, forecast report is for that future projected revenue. You also have the opportunity to click Forecast My Pipeline by Confidence. On a lead page, we do allow you to toggle this confidence percentage. And essentially what's going to happen here is we have a lead for $51,000, and let's just say we've given it a confidence level of 50%. In our forecast report, if we check this off, it will take into consideration 50% of this 51,000. So in our July 10th weekly reporting, will now only be taken into consideration 50% of that 51,000 instead of the full 51,000. And that's just going to be very helpful to get accurate reporting, to get an understanding of what you can possibly project your revenue out to be. And it's also good just to track your sales and say, hey, we're projecting our revenue at, let's say, 100,000, but the last 2 quarters we've been coming in at 70,000. You know, do we need to adjust our expectations? Do we need to use the confidence percentage better? So it can really shed some great insight as to how well your leads are moving through the process and how likely things are to possibly close. This should be pretty familiar. You have your details and leads tab below. You have your segment drop down, and then your filtering drawer that you can open up. All right, our custom report. I always get in trouble by the engineers because I say this is my favorite. They tell me I'm not allowed to have favorite reports, but I'd say this is probably pretty close. This is really the report where you can just pick and choose whatever you'd like to report on. So I kind of equate it to a salad bar. You pick your plate up and then you go down your list here of filters and you pick and choose what you'd like to run. So we've been doing a lot of assignee. I'll move away from that. Let's say if we want to look at all of our leads in the new pipeline. Okay, we don't have any in there yet, so let's look at leads in our default pipeline. I'd also like to see leads in our default pipeline that have come in through cold call. That's been something that, let's say as a team, I've been really trying to push them to get on the phones more. I want to see how many leads we have right now in that default pipeline with the source of cold call. I also have the option to say, I'd like to look at open leads. You know, maybe not all leads across the board, but let's look at open leads in that default pipeline with a cold calling source. So you can see how in depth and how specific you can get with your filtering. You can even include, again, your custom fields or company types, industry and territory. And these are the reports that I find people like to save probably most often. These are the ones, since you can do so much with your filtering, that it's easy and it makes you happier to just come in and, you know, let's just say this is our default pipeline and we're going to be looking at cold calling open. So we're going to save that. Now I can just click on my saved reports, and at any given time, I'll be able to click right back into that. Again, you have your details and leads tab. You're going to have those export options, and you have the same date filtering options as we showed on the other reports. Just as a note, this is kind of just a user tip If you close your filter drawer, those filters will persist, and the number at the top right-hand corner of that filter icon will just let you know how many filters you have applied. Some people like a cleaner screen, so maybe they don't want to see all that text. You can close that filter box. All right. So moving into the Insights tab, as I mentioned at the start of the conversation today, this is going to include some canned reports that we've already built out for you. The snapshot section is going to be really high-level analytics information that could be helpful to your team just to get a quick view of. Maybe this isn't something that you're going to go in and pull, your own reports on every day, but you would like to come into your snapshots and apply some light filters. So again, we could say, I want to, continue to look at Charles Berry's numbers across the board, and I also want to look at the last 90 days of his performance. So you'll see pipeline size, and then you will, I should say, you'll see the title of the report, and then you will see a small description underneath that report. So pipeline size, what was the size of our pipeline at various points in time? So this allows you to take a look across the board on that. We have a win rate percentage, sales cycle, activity effort, and then your leads on time. And basically your leads on time is just saying, what percentage of leads are up to date with no overdue steps, no overdue activities, and no overdue close dates. Your activity report is going to be specifically looking at the logged activities of your team. So when your team is on a lead or a company or a person, if they're coming into this timeline section, called and said not ready, call next week. I can log that as a phone call. And if I were to click into my activity reporting, I would then be able to pull by specific activity type. And I could see all of the phone calls that my team has made. You can layer, or I should say see multiple types of activity logging in one single view. So you don't have to necessarily just pick one. Oh, I want to see phone calls and emails, but I have to pull them separately. Now you can add multiple activity types into one report. You can also section out individual users. So you can see here, we're just looking at Charles, Jason, and John, and we're looking at phone calls, their emails, and their service visits. You do have 3 different views here in this activity report. You have the summary, which is very high level. It's going to look at, their progress to quota, if you put in an activity quota, and it will just show the percentage of that completion. The details report is going to be very quantitative, looking at just the raw numbers that have been associated with those activity types. And then your activities that's the tab where you'll see the information, you'll see the actual call notes, you'll see the company or lead that was attached. So this is the activities tab is where you get you'll see the actual logged event. Again, you can save these reports and you can download either the activities tab or the details tab. So the summary you aren't able to download right now, but you get that same information from details and activities. Your funnel report is going to be really where you'll see how effectively your leads are moving through your sales process. So, in a nutshell, you've built out a sales process, whether, you're starting with attempting to contact or you're starting with a brand new lead or maybe a warm lead, you'll be able to see how those leads or how your leads are working through those stages. So in this example, qualifying is our first step. 51 leads were added to the qualifying stage this month. So we're going to look at current month. 19 are remaining in that stage. So it shows you how many are added and then how many are remaining in that stage within this current month. You can click into these bar graphs and it will give you the lead list. So if you wanted to dive into those 51 leads that were in that qualifying stage, again, you can click out to that in a separate tab. You'll also be able to click out into these one lost and canceled sections. So you can see here we have 3 lost leads in the qualifying stage. If we click into that, it will show those 3 leads in a list view. And if you wanted to get even deeper into that, you could add in outcome as a column in that lead list view. So again, this report is going to look at top to bottom, how are my leads flowing through the sales process? And another good takeaway is that it can also indicate where things are getting stuck on your sales process. So we do keep track of the average time that the leads are spending in each stage. And you'll be able to see that as you see that average time as you start segmenting out. Maybe we want to look at current year instead of current month. And now we start seeing the numbers change to reflect all of our leads that went through the funnel within that current year. So a question that we had was, I like to put my graphs into a PowerPoint because my boss doesn't have Nutshell. And that's a common question that we often get. Hey, I have a team member who doesn't use Nutshell, but I want them to be able to see the data that I'm getting out of Nutshell, which is a great question. And we certainly want you to be able to take this information and make it actionable within your team. So what I would recommend is using this download option of your reports. And depending on what type of format your boss or your manager likes, you can either download the reports chart. So that will be, just kind of exactly as you'd imagine. This chart would pull out into an Excel sheet. You can download the details or the lead list as well. So if you think it would be advantageous to download all of the leads that are being shown up on this bar graph, you can just download that leads list. And as I mentioned, you can click on this columns button and it will allow you to change the fields that you'll be pulling out in that export. So great question. We certainly want to make sure that people know you can export the graphs with our reporting, as well as just the more list-focused view. All right. Well, I want to thank everyone so much for joining us today. I know we went through a lot here with the reporting, but I encourage you all to play around. As I mentioned, I've never been a numbers person, but I do feel comfortable messing around in our reports and throwing in different filters and trying out different views for myself. And I can't stress enough, it's super helpful that once you find that perfect balance for yourself, you can just click the save button and be able to go right back into that report. And to end the conversation, I want to remind everyone we do have support help for you if you do have questions. The question mark up in the top right-hand corner of Nutshell, if you click on that, you'll see a drop-down pop up. It will give you a couple of different options. One is to chat with our team. The second option is to use our Help Center, which has some amazing articles that you'll be able to click into. And then the third option is that you can watch some of our intro videos. So our support team has done a great job of creating consumable short videos that you'll be able to watch. That will give you a little bit more information on how to set up Nutshell and some helpful tools inside of Nutshell. All right, everyone. Thank you again from the customer success and the customer support team here at Nutshell. And all of our Nutshell users, thank you. And we will be in touch. If you do have any remaining questions that we didn't get to today on the webinar, we will be following up with you separately. Have a wonderful afternoon.